The Cardinals make a small deal to add some depth to the rotation and or bullpen, as well as could the Cardinals' best player end up playing a different position in 2026? Thank you for tuning into the St. Louis Cardinals Daily Podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and let's start with the signing of Bruce Zimmerman. The Cardinals have signed left-handed pitcher Bruce Zimmerman to a minor league contract with a spring training invite. No, this isn't some deal that's going to change the Cardinals' fortunes and make us rethink what 2026 could really be. And it's not us trading for some big-time prospect, but it's something worth noting because you'll probably end up seeing Bruce Zimmerman pitching at least a spring training game at some point. The left-handed pitcher was originally drafted by the Braves, but in the Kevin Gausman deal, he got sent to the Orioles, where he ended up playing 4 major league seasons with the ball club from 2020 to 2023, and it didn't go great. Or else he'd probably still be on that team or signing somewhere else for much more money. He had a 4.64 ERA in 39 games, which included 28 starts. And he stayed up starting most of the time with the Orioles that entire stretch. And then he found himself in the minor leagues with the Orioles in 2024, where he put up a modest 4.16 ERA. Then he ended up getting, released there, cut by the Orioles, and finds himself in Milwaukee playing with the Brewers, where he had a 4.11 ERA, and he went 10-7 in 28 starts. What's interesting here is how long he's spent in the big leagues and even into the minors while still being a starting pitcher. A guy who's been in the majors, found himself downgraded and still trying to start. This makes me think that this probably isn't a starting pitcher move. Unless the Cardinals identify something here that they think they can fix, it makes me think that this is probably going to be a transition for Bruce Zimmerman from the Cardinals, from the rotation to the bullpen for the Cardinals. He doesn't have amazing stuff. His fastball averages about 90 miles an hour. What he does really, really well is an elite walk rate in 2022, where he played by far the most games. It was in the 98th percentile in walk rate. That's something we can work with. He again doesn't have a great fastball. He's more known for his off-speed stuff, which is something you can get away with whenever you're a relief pitcher more. If you just have 1 or 2 good pitches, you can hide the fastball a little bit. People can't sit on it. And like I said, I think this makes more sense for the Cardinals to put him in the bullpen. They're desperate for left-handed pitching, especially with JoJo Romero potentially being on the move. This doesn't make me think any more than before that JoJo Romero might get traded. I don't think this has major implications on that, because why would a guy that, if we do end up putting him on our bullpen, hasn't really pitched much in the bullpen, so it doesn't really make me think that we're relying on this deal. Like, this is what's going to let us trade JoJo Romero. This is what will make us feel comfortable. But it's still worthwhile. And we don't even know. It has not come out to be said that the Cardinals are going to be putting him in the bullpen, because, again, he's a career starter and has been throughout all the minor leagues. This is my assumption, as I don't know how he breaks the Cardinals ball club otherwise. I know we're not great. Our rotation projects to be one of the worst, but I don't see why you play a guy who has a 4 ERA in the minor leagues over one of our prospects who you'd much rather see to get some time in the big leagues. So it wouldn't make a ton of sense for me if the Cardinals were to, unless he finds something in spring training, and again, the Cardinals tweak something and he gets a lot better, I'd assume that this really small signing ends up just being a bullpen piece at best. And hey, maybe we never see him. And Bruce, we thank you for your service. You were a great Cardinal already, for what it's worth. So hopefully he turns into something more out of the bullpen like we've done before. I wouldn't expect much out of the rotation. And more news and more speculation as we're waiting for more big news to drop. Derek Gould put out an article, and within it, he mentioned a interesting idea for the Cardinals. And I read this via Patrick McAvoy of Sports Illustrated. Gould was quoted saying in his article, "Herrera has taken reps at first base in the past, worked out there with coaches, etc. He would be an option there." Which is interesting, because the Cardinals have also mentioned this offseason how they've wanted to get him more catching reps and another shot at playing catcher, as Chaim Bloom has observed that he didn't get a great training. He said, quote, he didn't get much of a shot trying to play catcher due to some of the he was kind of forced in for his bat, and he didn't quite get the curriculum that he would have ideally had for Herrera. And he said the entire minor league system really wasn't getting the curriculum he would have hoped for. So Herrera kind of getting rushed up, and with the poor curriculum, really never got much of a shot to learn how to play the catcher position defensively, which reflects his very poor, defensive performance. That battle play will find a spot to hit him, so it's interesting that first base could be a real option. Gould goes on to say the Cardinals are also in the market for a right-handed bat, and one of the positions that could put that addition coming off the bench would be first base. Outfield or first base, maybe some third. Those spots are what they're thinking for this addition. So maybe this is a thing that will allow for more flexibility for the Cardinals if he can learn how to play first base, or outfield as he's played some reps before. A couple of options there for Herrera. Flexibility ultimately would be excellent. Herrera still projects to be our primary DH next year. If he can play some catcher, great. But he's going to have to be pretty darn good defensively for the Cardinals to want to put him there, because the Cardinals catching, while not elite, is fairly deep. It's certainly not the weakest part of the team. We have guys like Jimmy Crooks, who's the 6th best prospect in our system, at least ranked right now by MLB Pipeline. They're projected to come out with some new prospect information here soon, but as of right now, he's the 6th best prospect. Pedro Pajes, we obviously saw a ton of last year, very solid behind the plate. And Yoel Pozo has even proven to be a decent guy playing catcher for the Cardinals. So this would free up Herrera to get some more playtime in the field if that's what we wanted, allow for some maximized flexibility. We can maybe put Alec Burleson more in the outfield if we wanted to, which isn't good for defensive reasons, but again allows more flexibility. If Herrera can play another position, you can put Alec Burleson out in the outfield and get him off the DH spot just to free up some more things, like I said. Then you could have Herrera and Burleson kind of swapping off DH instead of Herrera having to be there every single day. Get Burleson, the big guy, off of his feet as much as possible, potentially. Nolan Gorman projects to be have the second most plate appearances at first base thus far, which he clearly isn't a first baseman. That's never been a part of his game to this point. So it would make a lot of sense that we need some guys at first base. Blaze Jordan is the next guy up in AAA. Obviously not a big-time prospect. Cool. I love to see him. Great name. I've heard he hit nukes when he was in high school. I'm all for that. But clearly the Cardinals have some open at-bats here at first base. And if Herrera can play some first base, it would allow flexibility in the outfield in case Jordan Walker, Lars Nootbaar gets hurt. Walker doesn't pan out. Victor Scott, the second, we're hoping turns into something more than just a glove, and maybe he doesn't, and this would allow for Alec Burleson to go out there. So although it would not be best case scenario if Alec Burleson has to play a ton of outfield, but sometimes you don't get best case scenario, especially in a rebuild. So if Herrera could play some first base so that Nolan Gorman and Blaze Jordan don't have to, it would give us our best possible lineup if things don't go well in the outfield. I'm not rooting for Burleson to have to play outfield. Again, if Burleson has to play outfield, something went wrong for the Cardinals. Ideally, he won't have to. Maybe Herrera learns some first base just to free some stuff up. Most likely, he'll end up playing mostly DH still, Herrera. But I thought that was interesting to note that the Cardinals are trying to find a good position for him. Probably not at catcher. I just don't see that going forward. You'd have to improve a ton at catcher for him to become the everyday guy there, especially with some guys knocking down the door. You got to open up for Rainiel Rodriguez down the stretch too. You got to find a long-term spot for Herrera, assuming he's a part of the future. As we're kind of in a lull for news, I thought it'd be good to start going over the Cardinals' projected roster going into 2026. We turn the calendar. We're about a month away from catchers and pitchers reporting. So I wanted to start looking at the team as a whole and start with the rotation. The Cardinals' rotation this year is not projected to be good. By Fangraphs, projected to be the second worst rotation in all of baseball, at least as projected by their WAR. Our expected rotation right now, per Fangraphs, is expected to be Matthew Liberatore as the 1, Dustin May as the 2, Andre Palante as the 3, Michael McGreevy the 4th, and Kyle Leahy as the 5th pitcher, being converted from the bullpen to the starting rotation. And the guys who are knocking down the door to try to get a rotation spot, who I could see any of these guys very easily earning a spot in the rotation coming out of spring training, are Richard Fitz, Hunter Dobbins and Quinn Matthews. Dobbins, since he's coming off the injury, I would be a little harder pressed seeing him make his way into the rotation out of spring. Again, I wouldn't expect any of these guys to have a spot out of spring, but if Quinn Matthews, shoves in spring and it comes back really healthy, I could see it. Same with Richard Fitz. Dobbins, again, has a little bit more of an uphill journey. But clearly the Cardinals' rotation is basically 2 guys deep, and the other 3 spots are completely up for grabs. Obviously Liberatore and Dustin May are the guys who have the most solidified spot to start the year at least. And if things go south, anyone in this rotation could end up anywhere. Cut, bullpen, who knows it. There's really no gimmies in our rotation this year. And I'm glad to hear we're probably not going to be stuck in our ways and refuse to move some of these guys. Let's say Andre Palante comes out with a 6 ERA. I'm glad we have options to feed up into that. We're excited for some guys like Liam Doyle to come up eventually and maybe eat some innings, but that probably won't be this year. So the Cardinals rotation will constantly cycle a ton of dudes this year. We're going to see possibly like 10 guys get in and out of that rotation if injury bug hits us at all. I don't expect us to add another starter at this point, so this looks to be the set of guys we're going into, and I'd love to hear your guys' point of view. Who do you want to see in the rotation this year? Who do you think we start and finish in our rotation? I frankly think Fitz, Dobbins, and Matthews, all 3 end up in the rotation in some way, shape, or form. We could go to a 6-man rotation with what things are looking like. Hopefully Michael McGreevy is the guy who holds on to that spot, just being a younger guy. Maybe Kyle Leahy really works out, but I think Fitz, Dobbins, and Matthews are all going to get shots, and that might be the guys who were there at the end of the year. Again, you guys tell me in the comments section. I really appreciate you guys helping us build this community that we are here at the St. Louis Cardinals Daily Podcast. Let me know your guys' thoughts down there in the comments. Thank you for listening.